Boro head to the Den in a playoff six-pointer, which following midweek results is simply an absolute must-win. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Project Boro preview show, where we look ahead to every single Boro game, of course. And today we're looking ahead to what I believe truly is a playoff six-pointer down at the Den on Saturday, which is an absolute must-win for Boro. And I know we say this about every game at this stage of the season, but it absolutely is, for two reasons, really. The first is Millwall themselves, because they sit currently, and this caught me completely off guard after the weekend's results and the midweek results. Millwall are only 3 points behind Boro, which I couldn't believe, to be honest with you. And what better incentive for them, seeing the visiting side come to the Den this weekend and be a side that is within sight of Millwall, and a side they can close the gap to. And albeit the gap now has grown to the playoffs for Millwall thanks to midweek results, which I'll get to in a second, they can still pull us real close if they can beat us. And probably even more importantly for them, if Boro beat Millwall at the weekend, I think Millwall are out of it. You know, the gap to Boro grows to 6 points. The gap to the playoffs currently for them is 5. That could grow to 6. It could even grow to 8. And you think with what would only be then 4 games to go, it would be too much of a gap to overthrow. So I think for Millwall, they've got two huge incentives, really. They can close the gap to Boro, and they can also, well, their playoff hopes are literally hanging on this game. If they lose it, they'd have to rely on the other teams all losing, really. And even then, the gap is big. So this is it for Millwall. But equally, it's not the only reason why this is big for Boro, because last night, annoyingly, Coventry, like Bristol City did the night before, found a very late winner to pull away into the playoff places. A real sickener for Boro. You know, we saw Bristol City win 2-1 at the weekend in the 96th minute, beating West Brom, which you can say, okay, that's fine. You know, the West Brom are a team below us. As bad as it was to see Bristol City pull away, it's damaged another playoff rival, being West Brom. However, last night, Coventry, albeit I expected it to happen, they beat Portsmouth 1-0 with the last kick of the game in what could be a crucial 2-point swing in the playoff race, meaning now the gap for Boro to the playoffs is 2 points. And with what will only be 4 games to go after this, it cannot get any bigger. It's as simple as that. If Boro fail to beat Millwall at the weekend, the gap could grow to 3, to 4, to 5 points. To Coventry, it might even grow up to 6 points to Bristol City. Boro cannot afford the gap to get any bigger than what it currently is with only 4 games to go, because then not only will we have to try and close a little bit of ground on Coventry between now and then, we'll also have to go there and win on the final day, which never ever happens and isn't a ground Boro ever do well at. So our job, our hopes of playoffs will take a huge blow if we fail to beat Millwall at the weekend. So this is an absolute 6-pointer. It could pull Boro right back into pole position. It equally can take Millwall right out of it. Or it could pull them alongside us and pretty much make our job of getting into the top 6 super, super tough. So this is it. This is it now. Got to win. Got to respond. Got to show the other sides that we're up for it. And we've got to put that Leeds game behind us. But as we always do, let's take a look at the opposition then, because Millwall, out of nowhere, have found themselves within touching distance of the top 6. Now, I feel like Millwall are in this position every season. They always get to the end of the season where they are just outside, possibly getting in, and then they fall away or they lose out with a game or 2 to go. But they're always consistently in that top 11, top 10, top 9. And they're there again. And it comes from a good run. They've won 3 of their last 6 games. They've come off the back of home wins to Pompey, but more impressively, they've just gone to Sheffield United and won, which is a huge result, a massive confidence booster, you'd have to say, and that has put them within 3 points of Boro, as I say. Now, that does mean they're up to 9th, 15 wins, 12 draws, 14 defeats. They actually have a negative goal difference, and they're on 57 points. And what I will say, and this is no disrespect to Millwall, I think it's quite telling how poor the Championship playoff race has been this year and how low the bar might be to actually get into the top 6. The fact that Millwall are sitting with only 57 points, which is sub 60 points with 5 games to go, and they have a big shot of getting into the top 6. That's no disrespect to Millwall, that's more a disrespect to the quality of the league this season. But I find it crazy that there's 2 teams sat there on 57 points who are still within a shout with 5 games to go. That's crazy, but that's where they find themselves, and they've gave themselves a chance. They will give themselves a massive, massive chance, as I say, if they beat Boro at the weekend. They've also won their last 2 home games, so they have started to improve at home, because I expected them to be better at home than what they were. The Den is always a notable, tough place to go, but they are only 17th in the home league table, which I find interesting. They're down to 17th now, 31 points from 20 games, so it's not awful, but it's still not great, and it is down there in the bottom half of league form or home league form in the Championship this season, which I find really, really interesting. So, yeah, they're Millwall are a side who probably shouldn't be in the playoff race, but because of the league they are, and they are also hitting form at a decent time, which makes this game at the weekend incredibly trepidatious from a Boro point of view. Taking a look, though, at Millwall, it's safe to say they are not an attacking team to be feared. They shouldn't be anyway, because they have the joint second worst attack in the Championship. They sit 23rd alongside Hull City, and only Luton Town have a worse attack in the Championship than Millwall. 40 goals they've scored in 40 games, only a goal a game, which isn't great. It looks a bit better when you look at their expected goals. They sit 17th for expected goals, so they're still towards the bottom end of the Championship, but they're not within the bottom 3. That's because they have underperformed quite badly in front of goal. Their XG actually has them at 46.2, so they've underperformed by around 6 goals, but even then, their XG still has them down there with one of the worst in the league. So not only are they one of the worst big chance creators, they also don't convert many of them either, and you can also back up their poor attacking numbers because they are down there at the bottom end for pretty much everything. They're 18th in the league for shots on target, 20th for big chances. They're also 22nd for big chances missed. They're really, really low in the majority of attacking metrics. You look at corners, touches in the opposition's box. Even if you look at their passing numbers, they're right down towards the bottom of the Championship. So they are not an attacking team that should be one that Boro fear. And like many of the games we've come up against over the last couple of weeks, we've seen sides similar to this where we've had to say, if Boro do the basics, don't make any big mistakes, we should be okay. If we can match them physically, we should be okay. I believe that will be the case once again. So Boro, if we can do what we did against Oxford, Derby, QPR, Stoke, same with Blackburn, I think if we can stand up to them and their physical players, we might hopefully see a similar outcome to a lot of the teams we've played of late who weren't great going forward either. Defensively though, it's like a flip of a coin, because even though they're one of the worst attacking sides in the league, they're one of the best defensive sides in the league, and this is where things could get a little bit sketchy for Boro, because Millwall are in fine company when it comes to their defence. They've got the 6th best defence in the whole league. They're up there with West Brom, Sunderland, Sheffield United, Leeds. Okay, maybe not Burnley, they're in another stratosphere, but still, Millwall are 6th. Defensively, conceding only 41 goals, which, as I say, is right up there again. It's around a goal conceded per game, so not much happens in Millwall games, but they are very, very good defensively, backed up by their XG against. You might actually think, okay, Millwall might have a really good top 6 level defence because they've overperformed and they've conceded a lot more chances than they've conceded, and their goalkeeper's keeping them in games, yada, yada, yada. No, you're wrong. Their XG against is just as good. It proves that they've got a very, very solid base, because they are, and if you flip the XG against table upside down, because of course the best sides are at the bottom, they've got the 7th best XG against number in the whole league. And again, that's just behind Coventry, Sunderland. You've then got West Brom, Sheffield United, Burnley and Leeds. So again, really, really strong company for Millwall in the defensive side of things. And now they have overperformed slightly, but not by much. 44.6 is their expected goals against. They have conceded only 41, so a slight overperformance there, but it doesn't take anything away from how good they've been and how little big high quality chances they've conceded. And if you compare that to Boro, we're actually just behind them when it comes to XG against. So we're quite similar in terms of the number of chances we've conceded, yet we've conceded 9 more goals than Millwall. So they've overperformed slightly, we've underperformed slightly, but it backs up the idea that for all that they're not a very good attacking side, they're actually right up there and will not be an easy side for Boro to break down. You can look at other numbers to back that up. They're 5th for clean sheets, again in good company. Only Sunderland, Sheffield United, Leeds and Burnley have more. And you look at other defensive numbers, and we don't actually look deep into these defensive numbers all that often, but they're really high when it comes to interceptions. They've got the second highest number of interceptions in the Championship. They're top for successful tackles in the Championship, out by quite a while as well. They are out front ahead of all the other teams by some margin. They're towards the top for possession won in the final third. They're towards the top 6 again for clearances per game. And even if you look at their goalkeeping numbers, as I mentioned earlier, their goalkeeper, he's not in the top 6 for any attacking metric. Save percentage, goals prevented, none of that. So that tells you their goalkeeper's not doing anything out of this world. It's not because he's bad, it's because he doesn't have to. It's because Millwall are so good at the back because they just don't give you anything. So that's where Boro are going to have to be really, really on it up front. And the worry, I guess, in a sense, is we've actually looked a little bit off it going forward in the last couple of games, albeit we did well at Blackburn. Second half there, and pretty much throughout the whole Leeds game, we were good until the final third, and then we absolutely just threw chance after chance away. So we're going to have to certainly be more clinical at the top of the pitch if we're to get through this Millwall side, because they won't be giving us many chances, so the chances we do get, we're going to have to take. Looking at their team then, they have changed over the last few games. They did play what FootMob at least said was a 4-4-2 away to Sheffield United. That's probably because they were going away to Sheffield United. But in the last home win over Pompey, which might be a better barometer of what sort of team they would play, they went with a 4-2-3-1. There are some big players missing out of that side, though. Japhet Tanganga, arguably their best defender, probably a top-level Championship defender, if we're honest, is out. I believe he's either broke his hand or his wrist, so he'll be a massive loss in defence. But in saying that, he wasn't in the defence against Sheffield United, and they still did pretty well there, getting a clean sheet down at Bramall Lane. In terms of other standout players, I mean, there's some good, solid Championship players in there, but in terms of standout players for Millwall especially, Ivanovic is probably their big one. He's their top goal scorer with 8 goals. He'll probably move up front with Josh Coburn, who was, of course, up front for them in the last couple of games. He won't be able to play down to him being ineligible. So they'll probably move Ivanovic, their top goal scorer, to the top of the pitch. Duncan Watmore, ironically, is their second highest goal scorer with Josh Coburn third. So they have quite a few former Boro lads or current Boro lads who are doing quite well for them at the moment. George Honeyman and Casper Denor are decent creators with 4 and 3 assists respectively. However, their top assister, Femi Aziz, is also out injured at this moment in time. So they've got some big players injured at the moment, Millwall. But even then, despite that, they still seem to be doing okay, despite the fact that they've got some big players missing. And in terms of the way Millwall's set up, it's actually really, really interesting. This could really tell you how the game is going to go, because I don't think I've come across as much of a low possession side as Millwall in the Championship this season. They're a side who probably don't want the ball, to be honest. They are completely the outright 24th lowest side in the league for average possession. They have the ball the least out of everyone in the league. Their average possession is only 43%. So Boro are probably going to dominate the ball in this game. Millwall are probably going to sit back and ask Boro to break them down, even in their own backyard. And then when they win the ball, they're going to be really direct and really physical, and are probably going to try and make the most of their set-piece opportunities, because not only are they low for possession, they're also incredibly low, as I alluded to earlier, with their passing numbers. I was really surprised. They also have the lowest number of accurate passes per match in the whole Championship. They're also 16th for accurate long balls, so even if they do go quite direct, their long balls haven't been the best this season. They're 16th for touches in the opposition's box and 15th for corners. So forgive me, Millwall fans, I'm struggling to see here where your offensive joy comes from, because they don't seem to be good on the floor, they don't seem to be great in the air, and they don't seem to have all that many set pieces either, so that might explain why they're really low scorers. So I don't know where their goal threat's going to come from as such, but even then, they're just so solid. They might just try and sit in and nick something against Boro, and I think paired with the den and the atmosphere their fans will create on what will be a big game day, Boro have got to stand up to that, and we've also got to be at our absolute attacking best going forward. And that moves me on to Boro's starting 11, which I know there's been an argument of late over the last few games as to why Boro should not change their side and not change a winning team, but I think now is definitely the time that Boro should look to do that, because, as I say, the attackers looked slightly off it of late, and there are a couple of attacking players that I would take out. I'd keep the back six as is. I think Travers in goal, Illing Jr. probably been our best player over the last few games on the left, with Vandenberg, Howson and Dijksteel making up the rest of the back four. I don't know if Dale Fry might come back in for Johnny Howson. If he is now fit, he did of course come off the bench against Leeds, so we'll see if there's a change to be made there. But I'm okay to keep it similar. As I say, I would be a little bit wary of their physical battle, but Howson and Rav have proven in recent games they can deal with that fine. Hackney and Morris will stay in midfield. I hope them two continue to play as well as they have been of late, because they've been outstanding, the pair of them, and if they keep playing to the level they have been, I'm hoping that'll help us unlock the door against this Millwall side. But the changes for me, they've got to come in the front four. I drop Iheanacho. I know he's started to do well, but for me, he was really poor against Leeds, and I just don't feel comfortable with Boro persisting as heavily as we are with a player who's not even ours, with a loan player, when we've got McGree coming back, we've got Morgan Whittaker on the bench, who's looked good when he's come off the bench, a £5 million, £6 million player. I think there's also a couple of players in that front four that have just not been playing well, and that's probably because they've been catering for Iheanacho, because with Iheanacho in the middle, central, that's forced Azaz to play out on the left, and because the only place Azaz can play is on the left, we've had to shoehorn Bergzorg on the right. Now, I've not liked Azaz on the left in recent games, and I've not liked Bergzorg on the right either, so let's not continue shoehorning them both into them positions because of Iheanacho. Take Iheanacho out the firing line. It might help his confidence a little bit. Bring Azaz back central for this game. That will allow Morgan Whittaker to hopefully get a start. I think he's warranted, if I'm honest, off of the right-hand side. And then I'd bring McGree in. You know, he's been back in the squad for a couple of games, not really played much. So I am a little bit wary of whether Carrick will throw him straight in from the start. But just because he's been out for a long time has not made me forget what Riley McGree can offer Boro. And I just feel like with Bergzorg's form falling off a cliff of late, we've got to move Azaz back in central. And then maybe you bring McGree in on the left-hand side. But even if McGree's not ready to start for whatever reason, if Bergzorg is going to play, I'd much rather him be on the left-hand side than the right-hand side. So definitely Whittaker and or Force on the right. Azaz in the middle, definitely. McGree and or Bergzorg on the left. And then Conway, of course, will start up top, undoubtedly. Head-to-head wise, there's not much to say, really. It's been mixed of late. Boro have done well at the Den in the past, to be fair. It's not one of them bogey grounds where we've struggled. We do have the edge on Millwall overall in the head-to-heads. We've got 11 wins to their 9 with 6 draws, so it's quite close, but it can change. You know, we've won the last 2 meetings. In fact, we've won 3 of the last 4 against Millwall, but they did come to Riverside at the start of last season and beat us on the opening day. They also beat us at the Den back in October of 2022 and the season before that. So it can change. Some years Boro go there and win, some years Boro go there and don't, but I think more so for me, it's the occasion, it's what's at stake that is bigger for me, and it is huge that, as I say, Boro go there, forget what happened at Leeds, get right back on it, get right back to what was a very good run of form, and deliver what we have delivered against similar sides to Millwall in recent weeks, and that is a clinical, solid performance where we hopefully can close the gap once again, because if we can win, then we don't have to worry too much about whatever Coventry or Bristol City do, because the gap will stay. It'll stay at least what it is now. It might get smaller, but the one thing we can't do, as I say, is let it get any bigger. So my prediction then, I've got to be positive. I understand this is a huge game, a tough game, and maybe Borough's, well, it is Borough's biggest game of the season. It could be their toughest as well, given what's now built on it. But I am going to go with a positive 2-1 Boro win. I do feel like even despite losing to Leeds, and I know the refereeing decisions were quite questionable and that could have changed the game completely, I still thought Boro were very, very good against Leeds and competed against the best side in the Championship really, really well. So I'd like to think we can take positives from that and be more than good enough to get by Millwall, because let's be honest, if we can't get past Millwall, maybe that's a sign we don't deserve to be in the playoffs. These are the sides we've got to pull away from and prove that we are worthy of getting in that top six. So we've got to be beating them to prove we are good enough to get back in there. So let me know your thoughts, predictions and feelings ahead of this one in the comment section below, whether you're a Boro fan, Millwall fan or otherwise. As always, leave me your predictions in the comments with your expected teams and expected results as well. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more. We preview and review every Boro game here on the channel, of course. I'll be back on Saturday night probably to review whatever happens down at the Den. A massive, massive game for the Boro. And as I always say, if you'd rather listen to these on the go at your leisure, as and when you please, there is a link tree in the description to link you off to the podcast providers and as well my social media, where you can follow me on TikTok, where I do more short form Boro content, and X as well, where I post a lot about Boro throughout match days as well. But until next time, guys, pray for a Boro win at the weekend. It's absolutely huge. We pull away from Millwall, close the gap to the top six. It's at that stage of the season now where it is literally do or die. But until then, take care and I'll see you all at the weekend.